Welcome to Pharmacy View podcast, where we provide regular interviews with pharmacists and key people within the Australian pharmacy and associated industry. In this stream of podcast episodes, we discuss aspects of technology or business operation and how each area interacts with guests' current role or pharmacy-related business. I'm your host, Scott Carpenter, and my guest today is proudly brought to you by Shopfront Solutions for all your digital, shelf and marketing needs, part of the Arian Technologies Group.
First of all, change management is a big thing. Whether you've got change management putting new equipment in, a new process in, a new facility, or you're proposing that to one of your customers. So I totally agree with that, and we see that all the time. In fact, often it's not about the machine, it's about the change management and the acceptance of the staff. So that's very, very true. Come back to your dad's situation. You know, there's quite a few different markets out here for this type of robotics or automation, as I like to call it. The markets range from, there's a lot of pharmacies out there doing 50, 100 packs a week, and they're quite happy packing by hand, and that's a great thing. You know, they're providing a service. Then there are pharmacies that are doing 150, 200 packs a week, and they're sort of building up to a situation where, you know, have I got enough time to do this? What is this costing me in terms of dealing with my other customers in the pharmacy? I've got all these other things going on I'm time poor. I don't want to be packing overnight, you know, when I could be with my family. Those are the customers you start to say, those first two customers there are 50 to 100 and say 150, 250, they've got a couple of options. If it were me, I'd be asking myself, am I going to grow this business? Have I got the opportunity to grow this business, pick up new customers? If I have, then I've got to consider automation.
Really looking forward to today's episode and recording, with my guest being Michael Beck from MedID. Welcome, Michael.
Thanks, Scott, for having me. I've been really looking forward to doing this, and it has been a long time coming.
It has been. So, Michael, the reason we got here today is, I guess, following up an episode that we did, well and truly over 12 months ago with pharmacist Lucy Walker, who was, from memory, the first pharmacy in Australia to bring in this SynMed packing machine for, blister pack type medications for aged care and for home care. So we'll get to that in a minute, and I guess that's part of the conversation I'm really looking forward to. But before we get to that, and for our guests and audience listening today, who is Michael Beck? Sometimes
I wonder myself who's Michael Beck, Scott, but look, a bit of a serial entrepreneur, if you want to put it that way. I love setting up businesses, running them, and serving niche parts of the market. But I actually started a long time ago when I grew up in Newcastle. I was a Novocastrian, and proud to be a Novocastrian, and not there anymore, but certainly my heart's there. And my parents were in small business. My father was a motor mechanic and had petrol stations, and I sort of learnt that small business attitude at that point in time that gives you a lot of freedom, but there's also a responsibility with that as well. At 10, 12 years of age, I was helping, check cars for their water and their oil and all that sort of stuff, which you couldn't do today. You just couldn't do today. But it gave me something very interesting. It gave me the opportunity to actually start looking at what my life would be like, and the fact that I couldn't work in an office. I had to be sort of doing things that really suited me. Up a couple of years later, I was 15 years of age, and I got a job at David Jones in Katara, which is a part of Newcastle. That was a really interesting time. I originally went there to work for the Christmas holidays and ended up staying for 7 years part-time. They couldn't get rid of me, and I couldn't get rid of them. I absolutely loved the place, loved the friendships I made there. But more importantly, I found out that I really enjoyed the retail environment. And, retail environment and pharmacy are sort of similar things in some ways, as you know. And that gave me a bit of a passion for and an understanding of what pharmacists are actually doing. Fast forward a bit later, I went to university in Newcastle and studied medical radiation technology. Spent some time as a radiographer for quite a long time, running CTs and scanners and things like that. Ended up running a large group in Sydney for a couple of years, but soon realised, Scott, that wasn't for me. Whilst I love the helping patients and all those sort of things, I couldn't stand sitting behind a monitor all day, looking at CT scans and all that sort of stuff. So the clinical stuff was great, but I felt pretty much trapped. Fast forward a bit further, I ended up working with GE Healthcare, or GE Medical at that point it was called, in the late 90s. And that was a tremendous time of change. So we were going from an analog world to a digital world. So my role in there was product manager and for the IT division, which basically did what Fujifilm did for digital cameras. Took X-rays from the film world into the digital world. And what came of that was the amazing time of moving images around, helping streamline practices, doing all those really good things that pharmacy's just starting to get into now in a really good way. So as a result of that, my business partner, Paul Gooden, contacted me about 5 or 6 years ago and said to me, look, who I met at GE, by the way, would you like to get involved in pharmacy and do some of the stuff we did in radiology? And we looked at it and we thought, yeah, that's really very, very interesting. Fast forward 5 years down the track, we've got a stack of SynMed robots out there. And yes, Lucy was one of our our very first customer. Great lady.
Absolutely. And just so I can clarify this, so yourself and Paul Gooden, you mentioned, are still partners today, and your business is MedID?
That's correct. MedID is, Paul and I set up that business in 2018, and I'll give you a little bit of background because there's a backstory to that as well and how we met SynMed and such. So in 2018-19, we travelled to the Netherlands to meet a company called MedI, which is a company that produced something really unique, and I'm still very passionate about it. It's a product that actually scans oral medications at the bedside and can also scan using computer vision and AI, syringes and all sorts of things to make sure that the patients in the hospital are getting the right medication at the right time and the right dose and such. Because as the stats say and the studies have shown, there's quite a high rate of errors within giving medications. In fact, I've had that happen to me in a hospital as well, receiving the wrong medication. As we were getting closer to fulfilling that, that launch, we had a couple of customers that were pretty ready to go when COVID hit. So with COVID hitting, we suddenly couldn't take the product to market. We couldn't get into the hospital to show people. We couldn't do the implementations we'd been planning. And so we had to pivot at that point in time. Coincidentally, the founder of SynMed, or Synergy Medical as it was called then, Jean Poutin, was also bringing MedI to market in the US market, or trying to bring it to market. And he contacted us and said, you guys are doing something down there, the same as us. Have you looked at SynMed? And SynMed is quite a big company then, with over 500 or 600 installations at that point in time in North America and some in Europe, but nothing in Australia. And at that point we said, we're not sure whether we'd work that out, we'd fit that out. COVID's still here, installations are tough. And we really thought, he kept pestering us. He kept saying, look, then one day he rang me up and he said, Michael, I've got a job for you to do. I said, what's that? And he said, Lucy Walker at Goondiwindi. I hope you're listening, Lucy, by the way. We'd love to see you at APP. She would like to put a SynMed machine in and we'd like you to do it for us. And Paul and I looked at each other and we said, all right, let's pursue this. After we'd done the research, we did the business case, we worked it up, we looked at what our finance position was like, and we thought, yeah, this is a good fit, except COVID was still around. And this was a time when Brisbane or Queensland was shutting down from New South Wales and people were meeting at the borders and there was all these horrendous lockdowns going on. We couldn't get couriers, we couldn't get shipping into the country. But you know what, we delivered it. Tough delivery, first site we'd done, a lot of learning from us, a lot of learning from the team up at Goondiwindi, but we delivered it. Since then, the business has grown quite remarkably. We're in a lot of the major pharmacy groups. We're dealing with very, very senior people within those groups. We're looking at both installations into a single pharmacy and large installations in hub and spoke and packing houses. If I can mention a couple of names, Scott.
Yeah, by all means, as long as you're not breaking any confidentiality.
No, I'm not breaking it. And that's one thing we do pride ourselves on too. We don't discuss other people's business to other businesses. But, these guys, it's public knowledge. So Dose, National Pharmacies, we're doing a lovely article coming up in the ITK magazine about them. Fantastic customer. The guys in Perth at OMS. We've got a fantastic referral base. Sure, we have our challenges, but everybody does. But we're very proud of what we've achieved. And, very, very sound products that we bring to market, which incidentally were purchased by BD late last year, and it's now BD Rower SynMed. So before that, it was Synergy Medical SynMed, or we're now BD Rower. So we've formed a very strong partnership with that team, and looking forward to a very long and successful partnership.
Going forward, yeah. And so, Mike, if I can just on that note clarify, I think I've understood it, but just for our listeners' audience today, so yourself and Paul, business is MedID.
That's correct, yes.
And you are partners, or you are partners with initially with SynMed.
Yes.
And now I understand SynMed is part of the BD Rower family. So at APP this year, are you your own stand, or are you with BD Rower? How is that working?
Yeah, great question. We've done a lot of work with BD, and they've been really helpful with us. It's a new technology for them, the blister card DAA packing business. We're a very, very high volume, high efficiency product. We're not a small semi-automatic robot. What we've done this year, though, is we had to, as you're probably aware, APP, you've got to book your stand 12 months in advance. It's that popular. And so we booked our stand at 411 at the APP. And if you've realised, we've taken a small stand, but we've got the BD team up the other end of the booth, and we're going to be talking about how we can help both of our customers. Because BD, obviously automation with the BD Rower and their BD Rower Dose, and now this becomes the third part of their trifecta. So we'll be down by ourselves, but we certainly won't be alone. So we're really looking forward to that. We won't be taking any equipment this year because it's so damn expensive to ship to the actual convention centre and install. It's a complicated piece of kit, and wouldn't do it justice to actually have it half installed there. So we've got some nice big monitors, take people through what the products can do.
What it does, yeah. And again, I recall from my interactions with Lucy, I'm sure as busy as she may be at any one point in time, you'd be referring people onto herself or any of your other customers to talk about the installations from that perspective. So just on that, and again, for anyone that may not have heard Lucy's episode, can you just talk to us as an overview on the SynMed machine, the DAA packaging?
Yeah, sure. So SynMed, very interesting model. They've built the machine from ground up I think around about 12, 13 years ago. And they had a few strong angles that they wanted to put to it. They wanted a machine that would last a long time. So it's not a plastic machine. It's full of componentry that is actually metal, if you like, strong software. And they also use some very, very interesting technology, which we call pick and place. So instead of dropping medications down a chute as a pouch machine would do, we actually pick the medications up out of the actual cassette syringe with a pipette that's vacuum controlled. And that gives us a couple of really, really dramatic options. So simply what it means is that we can pack at speed, we can pack highly efficiently and safety. We have a very high accuracy rate. But the other things that SynMed does, it is a production machine. So it's not about packing one or two medications at a time. And finally, we've been very, very fortunate in this marketplace to have not only a high-speed, highly efficient machine that actually gives a return on investment. So you're not buying it to sort of solve a problem. You're actually buying it to solve a problem, service more customers, and make an income out of it. So it's another revenue stream. We're integrated to all of the major card and software suppliers. We're the only one that's taken the time to do that. So we've worked with Webster Care, we've worked with Omnicell, we've worked with MyPack. And all of those have been very supportive. And, at the beginning of the story was where Webster Care with Gerard Stevens actually coined the Webster Pack in the late 70s, early 80s, I believe, and he was the guy that kicked all this business off. So kudos to him.
All right, no, that's cool. And so I guess it's been part of a journey then through there. Can you talk to us a bit more about the journey from where you started with Lucy, the rollout, and where you're at today? What's changed? What's improved? You've obviously been quite a big learning curve to go from the first machine to several hundred now.
We're not quite several hundred yet, but we'd love to be there. We've got a very, very solid install base, if I could use that commercial term. When we started with Lucy, I must say that we had a lot of learnings. And COVID did not help us there at all. But fortunately, we had a very strong team in Canada and a very strong team in Goondiwindi. So Lucy helped us enormously, and I can't thank her enough for that. From there, obviously, we have referral sites. So we grew slowly the first year we had Lucy, and we picked up a couple of other very, very strong customers. So we put a machine into Strathalbyn in South Australia. Great guy down there, James Whitner, and they're actually one of our show sites as well. So, customers turn up to James unannounced to me, and James will ring me and said, I had Bill Smith here the other day, and had you go, oh, thanks for doing that, James. So tremendous to be able to know that we've done the right thing, I believe, and have customers do that on our behalf. Then the big stuff started happening. So the big packing houses started coming online. So the Dosage, the MPS of the world in Sydney, and they all come with their own challenges. I think the challenges for us were, these are large operations, and we certainly have our heart in making the best things happen, but it's a very strong collaboration because this is new technology to them as well. Most of these packing houses have been doing dose packaging, or pouch, or as you might call it, packaging at high volume, and been very successful at it. The blister card market is a slightly different market for customers, and I'm talking about pharmacy customers, in that it's a very strong community product. It's a very strong to have for your parents or people that have got medication adherence issues. To have that blister card, they can actually work much better with their medication. In the nursing homes, or the residential aged care, I should say, we see more of the pouch type product out there, but it's changing. It's changing all the time. It's a very fluid situation. It really depends on what people are being used to. The nice thing I like about blister cards, though, is that if you miss a dose, or you miss a time slot, if you like, you don't just pull the next pouch out and take that, because that might be for the morning, but you're taking it at lunchtime. So you're actually a stage behind. With the blister card, you say, well, I actually didn't take that, but you can move on to the next day or the next dose, if you like. Really smart system, and that's where SynMed and Synergy Medical in the early days kicked off, and we've grown it from there in Australia. So at the current state, we've got machines in every state except for Tasmania. We'd love to put one in Tasmania if anyone's listening, but I must say this is not the cheapest machine on the market, but I must stress it's the only one that gives a solid return on investment. And from a business point of view, it's great to be able to serve people and provide tremendous service, but putting a little bit of bringing a new product to market and putting a bit of extra profit in the business is very, very nice as well. Only one that can do it, and we're very proud of that.
Yeah, and look, I remember from the conversation with Lucy, it wasn't a hard decision for her at all. In fact, I think she was quite eager and keen to get this unit into Australia, after having done the trip overseas. So I don't think that she would have been that hard to work with. But again, if I talk about the investment, and also the cost of running pharmacies these days, which is certainly where my background's come from. So as most people would know, I'm not a pharmacist. I fell into the pharmacy industry over 20 years ago, and the rest is a bit of history. But I learned very, very quickly from some really good pharmacist friends, I would call them today, who educated me on what I needed to know and what I needed to be aware of and what I needed to be empathetic towards. But certainly in terms of customers, your local community, and not affecting their change too much. Doing something like this today is much more a business decision than anything, because the whole pharmacy model, as we all know, is changing significantly. Now, I'm going to use two examples that you can talk to in a minute, but certainly my first foray into pharmacy was with the South Australian National Pharmacies Group, and I was here in Melbourne managing the Melbourne pharmacies for them. And so more often than not, each time that we acquired a pharmacy as part of the acquisition program, we were picking up nursing homes, and we were doing Webster packs in those particular pharmacies. And I learned very, very quickly that you don't change things. If you do change things, you've kind of got to make sure all parties are on board very quickly, because you upset the director of nursing or the nursing staff in that nursing home, or you lose that relationship, then you tend to lose the business as well, which in a lot of cases is part of it. If I talk about the second example, which is my father, who we spoke a little bit more offline, he's in his 90s today. He's on the central coast of New South Wales. He surprisingly still drives, but within 15 kilometres of home. But he will always tell me about his Thursday afternoon visit from the local pharmacy assistant who's delivering his Webster pack, or whatever. We call it a Webster pack. I'm not sure if it is or not, but effectively he would be one of 1 million people today who would be having in-home deliveries. And again, I call COVID the unprecedented years, because I hate using the term. So the unprecedented years, people don't want to go into aged care facilities today, people, because of the stigma around that, unless you've absolutely got to. So people want to try and stay in their own home. So my dad, as a pharmacy customer, is living quite comfortably, still in his own home on the central coast of New South Wales, sitting on his front deck on a Thursday afternoon, and the little white Toyota Yaris pulls up, and the pharmacy assistant comes out and says, "Hi, Mr. Carpenter, how are you?" and delivers the pack. Now, if I take your journey back into that pharmacy nearby that services him could be doing one of two things. They could still be packing them as Webster packs in their pharmacy. They may have actually put a machine in. I don't think they would have, because I don't think their market would be quite big enough for that particular pharmacy. But more than likely, they could be using a hub model where someone else is packing for them for delivery to my dad. Is that what I understand?
Yeah, look, I'll unpack all that a little bit for you, if you like. First of all, change management is a big thing. Whether you've got change manager putting new equipment in, a new process in, a new facility, or you're proposing that to one of your customers. So I totally agree with that, and we see that all the time. In fact, often it's not about the machine, it's about the change management and the acceptance of the staff. So that's very, very true. Come back to your dad's situation. There's quite a few different markets out here for this type of robotics or automation, as I like to call it. The markets range from, there's a lot of pharmacies out there doing 50, 100 packs a week. And they're quite happy packing by hand, and that's a great thing, they're providing a service. Then there are pharmacies that are doing 150, 200 packs a week, and they're sort of building up to a situation where, have I got enough time to do this? What is this costing me in terms of dealing with my other customers in the pharmacy? I've got all these other things going on, and I'm time poor. I don't want to be packing overnight, when I could be with my family. Those are the customers you start to say, those first two customers there, 50 to 100 and say 150, 250, they've got a couple of options. If it were me, I'd be asking myself, am I going to grow this business? Have I got the opportunity to grow this business, pick up new customers? If I have, then I've got to consider automation. And we'll just leave the brands off the table for the moment. If I'm not, there's a strong case to go to one of the large packing houses, ask them to help you, and we've got a lot of our customers are those as well, and they do very, very good work. It's a reliable, affordable service that just basically takes that service for the customers, for the pharmacy customers, off the hands of the pharmacist, and helps them a lot. The next step after that, and it's funny you mentioned Nationals, because what you've also combined there, if I can segue into it, Nationals is one of our biggest customers in Adelaide, National Pharmacies. They did outsource their packing to a very, very, very successful pharmacy down there, or a pharmacy packing provider. But they decided to bring it in-house, and they put us what's called a SynMed Ultra, which packs around 3,000 packs per week with two and a half staff, and within 40 hours. So it's a fast machine. It's not, you're talking major amounts of technology here. We've got one of our customers that has one machine, and they do upwards of 5,000 cards a week in 2 shifts. But National looked at the numbers, and they said, you know what, if we were to do a hub and spoke model, and I think there's another model which I'll explain to you after that, which is going to even be bigger than that. And the hub and spoke model is where you have obviously spoke sites, so generating sites that are generating prescriptions into a hub, and the hub basically brings the economies of scale of having 2.5, 3 people running the shop inside. And they actually then transport the finished product back out to the pharmacies. Does a couple of things for these pharmacies, and this is not only in Nationals in South Australia. We have another big pharmacy in Queensland, Foots Pharmacy. Great guys, very slick operation. They commented to me that what was happening with them is that the pharmacists were finding more time to talk to their customers and their patients with their prescriptions, started advising them rather than packing cards, and actually building up their businesses even more. So not only card business, but they're out with the customers, talking to them on the floor. And that was something that came back from one of the owners of the business, that they thought that was quite good to give them that growth. So segue right back to what I said before about I'm doing 250 cards a week. My question is then, if I can get another 50 or 100 or 200, because my time's freed up, then that's pretty damn good. And I'll give you a direct example of that. One of our customers purchased an XF. They've done a small hub and spoke. They started off with 300 patients they knew they'd have because they're the community patients they've got. They're now nearly oversubscribed on that machine at 1,000 cards per week. So when people say to me, "Oh, this is a problem, and we've got to, packing is a problem, and it's cost us a lot of time and stuff, but it's a great service." My question to them is, if you were to automate, what would that mean? Would you be able to get more customers? But there's a few other things that I've observed, if I can just share something else with you, Scott.
Absolutely, yes.
A lot of people talk about 30, 60 day, and a lot of worry about that. Mm-hmm. And one of the entrepreneurial skills that I talked about at the very beginning is I like to watch and listen to people and just see what their take on things is and just observe. And I hear there's two camps out there. There's one camp that says 30, 60 day is terrible. And there's another camp that says, well, we're going to make the best of it. And whichever way you cut it, it doesn't matter. That's your opinion. And I started thinking to myself, well, what can I do for my pharmacy? Because thinking back to retail when I was at David Jones, how can I increase my foot traffic? What can I do about that? Because if they're not putting prescriptions in for dispensing fees and I'm getting less, then I've got to sell other stuff. I've got to sell vitamins. I've got to sell perfumery if you're into that sort of line, all those sort of things. I went to the pharmacy today and bought some stuff to take to APP, some razors and things. So we know that it's about $16 to $18 per visit someone spends when they go to a pharmacy. That's the average, and I've heard that from a couple of different sources now. My thought was, well, what if my patients didn't come back every 60 days to pick up their prescription, but they used a DAA pack and they had to come back every week to pick up their DAA pack? And what happens if the customer that's coming back spends that money? What happens if only half or a quarter spend it? It's still increasing revenue. So not only are you providing a wonderful service, you're actually giving the customers a reason to visit you in your shop, to build a community relationship, to do all those sort of things. And the final thing is, when I was in radiology, I learned this. This was 30 years ago. One of the radiologists I worked for, he said to me, Michael, he said, there's only one thing you need to know about this business, and that's switching cost. And I said, what's that? I was 24 years old. I said, what's that? He said, see that referral you've got there from Dr. Smith down the road? That patient can take that to any radiology clinic they like, and they don't have to come to the one that they told you to go to. And I went, right. He said, so our job is, if we want to build a business, is make sure we do great service, exceptional things that we do for our customers and our patients, so they don't switch. Providing a DAA service to your customers is a tremendous way to make sure that they come back to your pharmacy, to make sure that they purchase your dispense to you and shop in your store. And I think that's a wonderful opportunity for pharmacists. And that's the way I like to think about pharmacy and retail and the medical professions. Not just about me coming in and saying, this is a great machine, it does so many wonderful things for you. Look at the lights around there, isn't this good? Can you see this being backed in your garage at home like a car salesman would say? I want to understand the business, because I don't do business when it doesn't make sense, when it's not good for my customer, it's not good for us, it's not good for anyone. It's got to be right, and that's why we've got such strong, supportive customers. That's a bit of my story anyway about pharmacy and retail and such.
And look, that's good. And Michael, I did warn you that 25 minutes was going to go very, very quickly, and here we are. But if I can, while you get your thoughts together, I'm going to ask you one more question, and that is that, is there anything other key points that you had on your notepad that we haven't discussed? And there'll be a chance to chat that in a minute. But while you're thinking about that, I think the key point that I took out of what you just said there was that we know that the population is aging, and the reliance on medication is becoming greater in terms of healthcare and pain management, etc. But what you said in that, which I really took to heart, was the fact that in the past I've been used to coming into the pharmacy every month to have my prescription filled, whether it was a 30-day or even with the 60-day these days. The reality is that if you're on a 60-day medication, there's every chance that you're also on a 30-day medication. So you're still going to have to come in every 30 days anyway. But the DAA service gives the pharmacy the opportunity to have that customer come in every week or even every fortnight, not just the once a month. That's what I heard, wasn't it?
Well, that's what I believe, and talking to my customers, that's what they're seeing as well. But I think it's a little bit more than that, Scott. I know we're just about coming to time, but the thing that I think the thing, just going to get my train of thought here because there was a whole section in there. It's about building a customer community base, and pharmacists today are getting involved in so many extra services. Some paid for by the customer, some paid for by the government, some provided out of the pharmacist being that's a good service, and we need to do that for our patients and our customers. So I think it's part of that complementary system to actually say this is a service we're offering that complements the fact that I might have to get my blood pressure taken. People don't go to the doctor every day anymore, because the cost of it, I think healthcare is quite reasonable in this country. But I'm not a pensioner that's watching every penny. But to go to the pharmacy, get my blood pressure taken, or to ask them about their diabetes medication, these are important things, and it's an opportunity for the pharmacist to engage with those people. I think that's really important, and DAA is a way to actually sort of turbocharge that a little bit.
Yeah. And I think that was the point that I took out there, is that it's a service that you can offer in your community, which will bring the customer in several times a month, not just once a month. And
that's got to be good for healthcare.
Correct, yeah. Michael, was there anything else on your list?
Look, I don't think so. I think, it's been really fun chatting for a start. I've really enjoyed it. I'm very passionate about the business of healthcare, but I'm also passionate about the actual users of healthcare. And, pharmacy's doing some tremendous things that often go, how can I put it? They don't get the coverage that you often think, but there's so many services going on in pharmacies today. I think the key thing for business today across the board is with the cost of living, and there's not enough low unemployment and things like that. It's very hard to get good people. I think that's really key, and getting good people to just do this sort of work, special people, is key to actually being successful. And I think the other opportunity is when you put automation in, and I often say this to customers, if Coca-Cola could pack their Coke bottles manually, why would they have automation? They do it for a reason. They do it to actually enable their people to do better things. It's not about removing staff. It's not about laying people off. It's about actually saying, okay, if I can put a machine in that packs DAAs and I'm making a profit out of it, I'm not putting it in because I'm scratching an itch, and my staff are not required. So an XF requires one person to produce 1,000 cards a week, one person. An Ultra, 3,000 cards plus 2.5 people. To do that, XF, you would require 5 or 6 packing pharmacists to do that. It's enormous. To put another machine in, you're looking at 2 to 3 staff to run the machine. So the ROIs, as soon as you add staff, go out the door. However, if I can increase my profitability without increasing my payroll, I can move those people that were currently packing front of store, helping customers, advising them, bringing them to the pharmacist. That's the key. That's hands down the key. I can subsidize, I can afford this machine, I can make a profit, and I can double down on my customers. And that's what I'm looking for. All I want in retail is service.
Correct. That's great. And on that note, Michael, we're going to wrap it up there. But I think for our audience, just to be aware of, is that you and I are discussing potentially doing a couple of other episodes, particularly with your partnership alliance with the BD group. So I'm looking forward to chatting to you again sometime very, very soon. Thanks very much for your time today, and look forward to talking soon.
Thanks, Scott. Very much appreciate it. Speak soon.
Thank you for listening today. Pharmacy View is a technology-focused podcast provided by Melbourne-based business Arian Technologies and Shopfront Solutions. Over the podcast series, our guests include pharmacists, retail managers, wholesalers, suppliers, and industry technology partners. If you would like further information on our podcast series or to participate in one of our episodes, feel free to send me a message or touch base through the Pharmacy View website, pharmacyview.com.au.